Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Naaman's Bogus Hangout. And have my guests introduce themselves. Doc?
Doc Sheldon here of Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central. Hello, everybody.
Terry?
Terry Van Horn, International Website Builders and SEO Training Dojo, SEO Pros, and I can keep going.
And I'm Bill Slotsky, author at SEO by the Sea and Director of SEO Research at Go Fish Digital. Well, it's looking like it's summertime here, guys. So, bright and sunny.
Didn't catch that, Bill.
I said it's looking like it's summertime here.
Huh.
It's all bright and sunny.
Well, I'm glad you're getting some sun. All I've got here, hell, I can't see hardly across the street for the fog.
No. So the fog usually burns off by this time in the morning here.
Yeah, usually.
So I didn't realize that when I moved out here, they would have nicknames for months like May Gray and June Gloom.
Yeah.
But there's a layer of fog that comes from the ocean and spreads out over Southern California and makes everything look like it's going to be a miserable, ugly day. And it burns off usually by mid-afternoon.
Well, it's kind of gloomy out, but at least we didn't get 130 tornadoes like they did in the Midwest this week.
No.
Boy, they're catching hell, aren't they? Talking to a friend earlier that's in Texas that had a string of 7 storms tracking right down on top of her. And just about the time one would pass, another one would start hitting. The last 3 days, and getting ready to mount her house on pontoons, I think.
No. I don't have much to complain about when it comes to weather here.
Nope, it's not. Generally it's not bad.
If anyone should come, it's me.
Yeah.
Weather doesn't affect me. Good, bad, I'm indifferent to it. Just stress for it. Shouldn't change you. Shouldn't let it affect you.
Well, sometimes it does when you have to do things like shovel snow every day.
Oh, let it melt. That's my theory. Leave it melt sometime. Or get trodden over and pushed down. Turn into ice.
Mm-hmm.
What's new and different in search besides the June update? Anybody seen anything really noteworthy about this June algo update? I really haven't.
Well, you're probably not doing the things that would make you know.
Well, I always like to color between the lines, so I don't have to worry too much about them. But I've got a couple of news sites that I'm working on that have not been coloring between the lines, and even they haven't. I haven't seen anything yet that gives me reason to think that it's focused on this or that or another. I haven't seen anything definitive yet.
Well, the official word from Google about updates, core updates, is that they're not really something you can optimize for.
Right.
Right? But there are certain things that you do with your website to make them capable of withstanding drops in traffic based on upgrades.
Sure.
Like, to me, all these updates are just like, when Google said that they could, that they didn't have to refresh Panda, Penguin, all the quality algos.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I think at some time they are refreshed because it's a compiled stuff, right? Their results are actually compiled. So at some point they have to refresh what's compiled.
I don't know that they really have to be compiled, though. With the amount of hardware.
Serve them so fast, Doc.
Say again?
That's how they serve them so fast. If you had to search a database as big as theirs every time someone did a query, you wouldn't be out. It would be dogs.
I understand, but I'm just simply saying I think if they have enough hardware available to them, that they could be doing this on real time, a constant refresh rather than a refresh batch.
So caffeine was supposed to be an incremental indexing of websites. So if they're capable of doing incremental indexing, they're capable of making changes to what they have indexed while they're updating, while they're adding new content and removing old content. And they cut down lag time between the time a query is made and the content that's being indexed is appearing in results for that query. That's a point behind caffeine. So it would reduce a need for refreshing a database for an update.
But okay, so when you make a change, then how do you implement that change to the core algorithm? Wouldn't you have to do a refresh then?
You don't have to. There's no need to you don't need to refresh anything to the algo. The algo stands alone. It's working with the index. And if it suddenly comes and indexes a new page or an updated page on your website today, it could theoretically immediately replace the old version of that page with the new version of that page in the index and apply any new adjusted factors to it that they see fit. That could be done on a rolling basis. My theory.
It's quite possible there's a guy behind the curtain with a bunch of buttons that say algo 1, algo 2, algo 3. And he wants to change and update an algorithm. He just presses the right button. And the algorithm's changed. There's no need to transform an old algorithm into a new one.
Yeah.
when
you can just impose the new one.
Just to replace, yeah.
I don't know. It just seems more like a refresh than, the way they recur. You don't really see anything new. You just see maybe what's already in there being changed slightly.
Right. So you replace the algorithm. You replace a slightly modified version of an algorithm.
Right.
You tweak it, you make changes, you say, we don't want it to do this thing anymore. Let's remove that.
Right.
I think that type of tweaking goes on frequently.
Yeah. I think at some point that in order to make it so that changes, right, are applicable to all pages, because if they don't do a refresh, the only way that they can update a score on a page is to index it. So wouldn't that be why you refresh?
Well, think about it though, Terry. Let's say that if that was the case and they refresh the algorithm today, then there would be no changes noticed until that algorithm got around to re-indexing all those pages.
That's what I'm saying.
So they would have to roll them in order to see any real impact on a short-term basis. They'd have to be rolling updates on the database in order for the algorithm to show quickly any changes when they replace the algo with a new version. But I think Bill's right. I think the only logical way for them to do it would be to replace version 2A of this algorithm with version 2B or version 3 of this algorithm, all in just throw a switch and make it happen. And now it is going to look at the index with different criteria, but the index has been updating piece by piece every day all along.
If Google's making 5 changes a day to their core ranking algorithm, they've got to streamline the process of updating that algorithm and replacing it. It's got to be really easy for them to do.
It just seems like some sort of refresh to me, that's all. Whether it's the data or what it is, but it's like something happens almost monthly now where you get either a phantom or one of these updates.
You say refresh, you remind me of what I used to see at Webmaster World when they referred to rollbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Probably.
It's like, this change didn't work the way we expected. We're going to roll everything back.
Yeah, or they to me, right? They don't index every page every time they come to your site. There's some they may hit once or twice a year, and that's it.
They've got a careful schedule of pages that they constantly change and update.
Right.
So one of the factors that they look at isn't necessarily going to be some inventory of all websites in the world and some schedule of those sites. Sometimes we're going to look at what queries aren't being addressed with search results correctly. What sites do we need to crawl to make sure those are? So that's a needy query approach.
What I have wondered about, Bill, on occasion is, particularly now that there's so much machine learning involved in their algorithms and fine-tuning themselves, is the index, I don't know that there is an index anymore. I wonder if there is an index for navigational, another index for informational, another index for transactional, possibly another index for local, another index. We know that there's a mobile index that is standalone, separate from the old traditional index. To me, again, from a computational sense, it would make more sense when they determine that a query is transactional, that they would be able to go to a transactional index, ecoms or whatever, and find in a much smaller pool SERP results that would match the query rather than going to the whole global index.
Did you see the blog post I published yesterday?
I did not.
Categorical quality. They said when we have a lot of informational pages as a result for a query, we often have too many results. And we ideally need a way to sort those in a way that might provide the best results for a searcher. So instead of continuing to rank those on the basis of relevance and authority, links, popularity, we're going to associate a category with each resource and query, and we're going to start showing categorical results based on quality scores. And quality scores can be things like how many navigational results are in the sites that are related to categories. Because navigational results tend to be results that are often really popular with searchers. Like YouTube would be potentially a categorical result for somebody who's interested in finding online videos. And it's a navigational. If someone wants to watch videos, they automatically go to YouTube. One of the aspects of that ranking sites based on category quality scores is how successful those sites are in search results, how often they get clicked on.
Yeah.
Which is something we've frequently been told by people like John and Gary. Google doesn't use a rank as a ranking signal. But if they're using machine learning to classify sites based upon category quality, maybe they are doing something like that.
Oh, sorry, he went out for a while. Can I
So, when the patents say that they are using click and query streams, and the webmaster evangelists from Google say we're not doing that, they're sort of contradicting each other.
Yeah.
So they are or they aren't doing it. They should make up their minds. Of course, I don't think they're going to tell us one way or the other.
No, not likely. There's no reason for them to start now. It certainly hasn't been their habit in the past.
There are times when they'll say something. Like I remember the one patent came out that said the length of a domain registration can tell whether you're a spammer or not. If you only register for 1 year and you're trying to save money, you're more likely a spammer. Say, okay, but most domain renewal services automatically renew you every year. They take your credit card on file and update it. So you often don't have to renew for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a spammer if you've only gotten 1 year.
Yeah, I could see that being something they might consider if you've already been flagged for some reason to be a possible spammer. Then okay, this is one more thing. I see his domain is only 6 months old and he's only got a 1 year registration. Then that might lend a little bit more probability to it if they're already leaning in that direction. But as a standalone, hell no. I've got 11 sites right now, and I don't think any of them are more than once a year renewals.
Yeah.
And I consider myself not to be a spammer.
So that patent came out, and GoDaddy came out with an ad almost immediately afterwards. It says, renew your domain name for 10 years, so it'll help your SEO.
Yeah, right.
So within a week or so of them publishing that, Matt Cutts came out with a video that says, just because we have a patent doesn't mean we're doing it.
Yep.
And one of the funny things was, he was one of the named inventors on that patent.
There's another reason to go for a long time. I can buy a domain for 5 years and pay a tenth of the cost.
Yeah.
I buy it for 1 year. So
yeah,
that makes absolutely no sense.
On the initial, yeah, absolutely. And that's what I've always done. A lot of my hosts have been a 1, 2, or 3 year. And the first go round, I'll go for the max because I'm, like you say, I'm locking in a low price.
Yeah.
But now all of them are old enough that there's no savings to be had. So I just go 1 year at a time. And I just recently, I used to make them go manual. And I just recently decided to go ahead and set them all up for automatic renewal.
Hey, you know what? If it's GoDaddy, they call you when they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I don't bother doing more than a year anymore, unless I want to save money, because they'll still do a deal if you do it before the expiry date. I get usually emails that say 20, 30% off a couple of months before their date.
Yep. And if you wait then about a month prior, just about 35 days, because most of them will actually hammer your account 30 days prior to expiry. And if you wait till about 35 days, go to your account, log in, look around a little bit, and log back out, and you'll get an email in about 30 minutes offering you a 40% discount. I've done that twice, once with GoDaddy and once with, I forget the name of the registrar down in Australia. Both of them did the same thing. I logged out, and bam, I got an email offering me a hefty discount. Just go to the pricing page and then close out.
Yeah, GoDaddy's not that bad. For that
Well,
kind of
for registry, no. For hosting, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Most hosts now that I've looked at, things a lot more deeper than I used. I used to just look at the price. That was it. Then I realized, okay.
You know the first thing I look at nowadays? I pull up my bookmark listing of all the EIG sites. If they're there, they're out of the running. EIG, Endurance Insurance Group, they own right now like 82 different hosting companies. They seem to be on a campaign to corner the market. And if they own the host I'm looking at, I'm no longer looking at that host.
They're on a buying spree. They find hosts who assimilate, and they take over and cut out everything.
Actually, it's probably cheaper for them to buy hosting companies
than to set up.
Actually try and advertise and get the customers the old-fashioned way. Right. It's much easier to buy them because the value on them are very low.
Yep.
And infrastructure, I just now putting together some stuff, and I can't believe the prices. Like right now, you can get into the business for about 1/10 of the cost of when I first started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hardware has gotten ridiculously cheap.
Oh, it's not the software. Now everything is SaaS.
Yeah.
Plus, when I had my own servers, so I was paying about $150 a month extra for air conditioning. You ever had 4 servers in a room? I fucking turned the heat off. Let the servers heat the room. Yeah. When it was in my living room, I wore shorts year round because it was so hot in the place. In the winter, turn off the heat. You would not believe how hot those things get. I understand why Google spends so much money cooling their plants. Yeah.
Yeah, and equipment these days is a lot less temperature sensitive than it used to be. You know, back in the mainframe days, you know, we built a data center for mainframes. A small data center would have 12 or 14 5-ton Liebert units in it. And there was like 1 unit redundancy there. You know, if more than one failed, you had to start shutting down frames.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you know, you've got more computational power in your kitchen with a couple of servers. You open a window if it gets too hot, you know. But we used to have like a 3 to 5 degree Fahrenheit window before we started seeing impact, and now it's like, you know, anything from 30 to 140 range.
Think about the computational power that the average person carries around with them in the phone.
Yeah. I saw a write-up the other day, and I didn't go and fact check it, but they said the iPhone 10 has more computational power than 2 System 36 mainframes combined. Now, a System 36 would cost you about $175,000 each. So, and that was just the frame. Never mind the data center and the air conditioning and the power distribution units and all that, you know. So, you know, suddenly $1,000 iPhone doesn't seem quite as intimidating.
So what was one of those mainframes run for? What did they do on it?
Oh, if you name it. I mean, they were running, data centers like, for instance, American Express or MasterCard, Visa, whatever. A lot of them were constant balls to the wall financial banking transactions and chargebacks and whatnot. So those were the busiest data centers I ever worked on, were the banking and credit organizations, because they were just, they're round the clock, super time critical, and a lot of those were leased services. You had folks back in the old days, timeshare, TYM share, had a data center, and they serviced people leased time on their frames. So they had a fairly broad spectrum of customers, but they were the people that really kind of pioneered the idea of building a data center and then letting out time to clients. And they build, and it depends upon what your consumption was on an hour-to-hour basis, what your billing was going to be. So if the holiday period, if it's summertime and you're on a credit card company, then your travel is going to drive your transaction count up. But as soon as school started, it would drop down. So you might see, I know that one of my customers was American Express. Their monthly billing out, because they actually did have some timeshare clients on their frames to keep their, for load balancing, to keep their systems as optimized as possible. They might be billing out a client anywhere from $12,000-$14,000 a month to $150,000 a month, depending upon the seasonality and what was going on. Pre-Christmas, credit card companies were, massive. So they'd start unloading machines to be able to handle that influx of business before the holiday rush. And then, summertime again, when school let out, people started traveling, going on vacation, taking cruises and whatnot. So they'd always try to unload machines. And as the doldrum periods would apply, they'd start pushing hard on the little guys who just took up space and didn't really generate a lot of revenue,
So
they could make room for a big guy.
are you saying that those old mainframes did more important type computing tasks in today's iPhones?
More important? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I would, because, you had a business that was dependent upon being able to get these charges to the card paid. So when, if timeshare went down, and, they were one of my engineering customers, and when they went down because the generator failed or the UPS system went up, then they lost like $35,000-$40,000 a minute was their revenue loss. So you can bet it didn't matter what time in the morning it was. You had 16 people climbing down your back to get things back up, and so you've got businesses dependent upon that. And on top of that, in the old days, you didn't have, this is long before like RAID 5. The backups were manual backups.
Yeah.
And most of the big shops like that ran backups continuously, but on a rotating basis. They'd be doing frame 1, from at 2 a.m. and frame 2 at 5 a.m. And if you went down, every transaction that took place against a card that you were handling during that, let's say, 6 or 8 hour window since your last upgrade or update rather, might get lost.
Yeah.
Somebody walked out of the store with the merchandise, you're never going to get paid for it. And that's one of the reasons that so many businesses popped up to establish these rolling backup, constant real-time backups to prevent that sort of thing. Because I saw one a healthy bank actually go out of business right around the 22nd or 23rd of December, because they had massive charges that got lost. And they were running with a local guy, a local host, for their processing, who didn't have adequate backup capability, and the power supply failed. And the guy went down. All those transactions kept rolling in, 15, 20 a minute got lost for a period of like 3 days. The bank went under. They just closed the doors. Because that merchandise got wrapped up and put under somebody's tree, but nobody got paid for it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's probably why. You can't do that, no.
No, not now.
They,
Well, in fact, the U.S. has actually passed laws since then, to protect both the consumers and the vendors and the banks. So there's a lot of stopgaps against that sort of thing. But yeah, back in the Wild West days, that happened, and sometimes it happened deliberately.
my brother was working for a TSE listed company. That's something you have to have documented 10 ways from Friday, and they have to approve it.
Yep. No, it's like back in the old days, these big data centers, disaster recovery was a major factor. To even be able to get insurance, you had to have a viable disaster recovery plan. If there's a flood or a major power failure, and where are you going to transfer your functions to? How are you going to get manning there? Is everything backed up real time so it's just a matter of going and throwing a switch and making the transition? Nowadays, you don't need that. And that was a massive investment. Basically, you had a duplicate facility with duplicate hardware, constant backups, and at least a skeleton crew of people that you didn't need, that you never used, just in case,
Yeah, that's also part of like a business center's business now, is companies come to them and basically have the people come there for their for the place to meet.
Yeah.
Go to work.
Yeah, the technology has definitely improved that in a lot of areas now. It's not necessary to spend a couple $1 million to have an empty building sitting someplace just in case you ever need it.
Yeah,
but,
I agree, because that's something I've been looking at is now with so many people wanting to work remotely.
Yeah.
That's going to become that is a business.
Yeah, it is. And it's not a whole lot of overhead to get into it either.
No.
Not a major investment like it used to be,
Yeah.
Definitely the internet has opened up a lot of new business opportunities, and it's solved a lot of problems. It's also created new problems that nobody saw coming, like security. And I think we talked last week about, how much information exists for so many people online that they have no idea.
So when it comes to legal protections and laws, the internet's a whole new thing. They're trying to apply some of the laws by analogy to the internet for things that were different, like hacking a computer is considered trespass against chattels, trespass against things. You use somebody else's car without permission. It's the same thing as hacking a car, hacking a computer. Same charge. So you sort of had to reinvent the law to apply to these.
And they're usually getting reinvented by people who have no clue what they're talking about.
Most of the time, yeah.
As was evidenced by Mr. Zuckerberg's visit to Congress. Half of those clowns couldn't spell internet, much less understand how it works,
When the Senate Judiciary Committee is looking at new laws involving technology and protecting people online, and you have to explain what a computer is to a congressman.
Yep.
Say, shouldn't they have classes on that stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure the local elementary school's library probably has something that would suit. Yeah. I just saw something, I think it was this morning, in fact, in a video that the graduating class right now of some university is the first Generation Z graduating class. And graduating class, or Generation Z, is defined as those who, when they were born, smartphones and tablets, internet already existed.
I remember going to college and it was optional as to whether or not we wanted to bring a laptop.
Now it's essential.
Yeah.
Hell, my daughter, when she was going through med school, she was having to do her homework assignments and submit her homework assignments online. And they had not a forum, but basically a community page set up on the university computer, so that if she had to call in sick one day, she could actually get either notes and in some cases actually a video recording of what took place in the class that day, so she could get caught up. In fact, I read something not too long ago. The homeschooling in the States, homeschooling has been growing in popularity in some areas, and somebody started an online, kind of like an online university type thing, but at a primary school level, so that now you can actually homeschool your kids and have the curriculum and lectures and everything provided online, so that you get some sort of they're certified courses. They're in compliance with your state's requirements and whatnot, as opposed to just taking mom's word that, yeah, we covered that, he passed it,
So educational districts have to come up with standards of educational things that kids are supposed to learn,
which have to be different than your brick and mortar standards,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's so many school districts around the country that are really struggling with the decades, century-old task of coming up with brick and mortar standards. I don't know how well they're going to stumble on doing it on a digital basis. Maybe it'll be simpler, taking the human element out of it. You'd think it would be actually a bit more cut and dried. Here's the data that was demonstrated. Here's the test that you had to take, and here's the number of questions you had to get right. Should be fairly cut and dried without personalities between student and teacher entering into it, or I don't know. There's good and bad that came with the internet.
Yeah.
And there's still good and bad coming. More that we haven't even imagined yet, probably. Well, the technology advances are opening up a lot of business opportunities and taking some away. It's fun.
I remember when a teacher yelled at my sister because one of her kids was turning in papers in third grade that were printed out in a printer. And the teacher said, "You have to stop doing your daughter's homework for her." And my sister said, "What?" "She's turning in documents like this." And my sister looked at it and said, "She's got that pretty good. She does it herself. She uses a computer. She writes it out, types it out, and prints it. Don't you wish you could do that?"
Ooh. If you'd like some tutoring, I'm sure she, for a nominal fee, she'd teach you how. I love it.
So yeah, I wish I had a computer when I was growing up.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, in my case, people wouldn't be able to read what I wrote. Still a problem to this day. Printing was never a skill that I acquired.
I do recall more than one of my teachers complaining about my total lack of penmanship. A printer in my living room probably would have made them a lot happier, because
For sure.
looked like a drunk chicken ran across the paper sometimes.
I remember I was 8 years old. My grandmother was showing me, she spoke 6 different languages fluently. And she started showing me how cursive writing in German and in Polish were completely different looking. The styles that they use to write words out in one language was really pointy and the other it wasn't. Had a lot more curves. It's like, it's tough when you have to learn a completely new language and a new type style of handwriting to go with it.
I don't think I've ever seen cursive of German or French or any other, any of the European languages.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't recognize, in printed, I pretty much recognize which language they are, but I probably wouldn't even recognize what language it is in cursive. Hell, they're saying right now, a lot of the school systems in the United States don't even teach cursive to primary students anymore, which I think is a damn shame.
What's cursive?
Handwriting as opposed to printed letters, like a signature, like you sign your name. Yeah, that's the cursive, and they don't even teach it in a lot of U.S. school districts anymore. Most states, from what I read. Of course, then you got to realize, Terry, somebody just you might have seen it online. Somebody just put out not a meme, but a post talking about, or I think it was a poll about whether Arabic numbers should be taught in U.S. schools. And something like 79% of the people said, hell no, we don't need no damn Arab numbers, without realizing the fact that that's the numbers you were taught all along. They're Arabic. It's just sad sometimes.
It's Jimmy
When I went to school, they taught phonics, and by the time my younger brother went to school, they'd already stopped teaching it.
Yeah.
My mother taught my brother phonics, and they could figure out why he could read so well.
Yeah, I was taught phonics.
Oh, for sure. It makes better spellers, too.
Yep. And this, what do they call this new style of math now for multiplication?
core math.
Something core.
Yeah.
To me is ridiculous. You got a perfectly good system that takes 3 steps. I know, for the sake of efficiency, let's replace it with this fucking thing that needs 16 steps. Yeah, who the hell's brain fart was that? Common Core, that's what they call it.
Common Core. Let's break math problems down into simpler steps. A lot of them. Too many of them.
Yeah, it just makes no sense to me at all.
I like that they're teaching kids algorithms, but not necessarily the easiest ones to get your head around. So, Doc, you were saying in the green room before we started today that you're going to be in Las Vegas for PubCon?
I'm trying to justify the cost. I'd like to. Awful lot of folks that I've known online that never had a chance to actually meet, yourself being one of them, and you keep promising to come to Tijuana for a taco and beer, but I never see you darken my door, so I guess it's going to be up to me. But I don't know yet. It's it's a chunk of change, and if I'm going to go, I'm going to make it worthwhile. I'm going to stay for 5 or 6 days, So taking myself out of pocket for that long is a challenge too. I don't know. I'm going to try.
Some of the places to stay there tend to be really expensive. They add resort fees
Yeah.
to the stay, and there are other places that don't. So
Yeah,
some,
I'd have to do some digging around for sure. The I've noticed those resort fees. In fact, here in April, my wife and I took off for a few days for our celebrate our honeymoon. We went to a resort down south here, and it's pretty much a local. I mean, it's not like they do a lot of international business or anything. It's a local resort, and they wanted to tack on $30 a day resort fee.
I heard an ad on the radio a couple of days ago. They were talking about Disney World or Disneyland, and they called it Disneyland Resort. So
They're kind of paving the way, are they?
become a resort. Yeah,
This is to soften the shock of them adding a $30 fee onto your fucking ticket next week.
I think
Is that in Orlando?
there's a Disney World in Orlando and a Disneyland in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Because I think the one in Orlando has always been called a resort because
Yeah.
there's a huge hotel there as well. I went there once.
I went to the one in California when I was 13. I don't remember it being a resort then.
Yeah. But in Orlando, everything's a vacation, basically. Florida's like that. I blew me away. I never seen anything like it.
You went to Epcot Center in Florida, and that wasn't a resort either.
Nope.
No.
Wouldn't be surprising if it was now.
I didn't care for all the standing in line. Half your time standing in line.
You know, my wife pestered me. You know, we just had our 30th anniversary, and
Yeah.
when we had been married about 6 months, she wanted to go to Disneyland. And she had been to Disneyland once before with family years before we ever met, and she wanted me to take her to Disneyland. And then she got pregnant, so it wasn't good timing. So we wait until the baby's born, and then the baby's too young. And so basically, when my daughter was about probably 2.5 years old, and okay, I'll take you to Disneyland. And of course, a 2-year-old being accosted by 9-foot tall dogs and 8-foot tall mice, screamed blue murder. But we went. We had a good time, and a few years later, she wanted me to take her to Disneyland again. But why? We've been to Disneyland. You know, I remember spending 14 hours there, 11 of which were standing in line. I remember paying $9 for a Coke and $7.50 for a bag of M&Ms. You know, what part of this is it that you're just dying to repeat? And we have not been back to Disneyland. Of course, the first my mom and dad took my sister and I when it first opened Disneyland. It had been open like 3 weeks, and we were living up in Oxnard area, which is fairly close by. So they took us to Disneyland when the majority of it was still under construction. They hadn't opened up Tomorrowland, for instance, but and I think it was like $3 a head for adults then. Of course, that's back in those days. My dad made like $30 a month, but it was like $3 a head to get in, and now I guess it's like $100 and some dollars. Poor old Walt would be flipping in his grave.
I'm sure they're
Pay for all the ride stock, and then you get to stand in line for 11 hours.
And yeah, building a thirst and a hunger, which they're gonna capitalize on that too.
So
No,
don't you
it's
have a bunch of Star Wars type rides now?
yeah, I couldn't tell you. The last time I was there was like back in the early '90s.
Yeah, and I would suspect they would start building some superhero rides.
Oh yeah, Marvel characters
Yeah,
and whatnot. Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah, probably. Well, I'm not a guy that's real fond of pressing, crunching crowds either.
Yeah.
So I mean, if there's 100 people bustling around just trying to make their way down the sidewalk, this is not a place I want to be. And if those 90 of those people have to stand in line to get to the fucking door, I'm out of here.
Doesn't sound like a resort to me.
No, sound like hell on earth.
All I remember is the parking lot was so big they had a shuttle to take you to where your car was.
Oh, here's a good one for you, Terry. We drove. And yeah, this parking lot. I mean, I've lived in towns that were smaller than this parking lot. Okay,
That's what I'm saying.
and finally found a decent parking place, and it wasn't too terrible because they had several entry points, for gates we could go in. It wasn't too terribly far, so parked the car, got the stuff, got the baby, got the cart, got the diaper bag, got all this stuff in the tote, make our way in, pay, and then like at 1 o'clock in the morning, because we had to stay for that midnight parade, of course.
Yeah.
At 1 o'clock in the morning, we're trundling back out of there, and I mean, rode hard, put away wet, tired, And I'm thinking, where did I park the car? And it wasn't like it was the one lone car out here in this massive parking lot that was still there because everybody stayed for the fucking parade. So wandered around, and finally the ticket didn't actually have a space number on it, but it had a code. And I found a guy and said, I got a problem, And he says, let me see your ticket. And he takes the thing out of his pocket and he scans it and he says, okay, you're over in this section, There's only 4 rows per section and two segments per row. So you got it down to 8 segments that you got to check. And
Get you down to 1,000 cars.
And he gave us a ride on his golf cart and took us over there and says it'll be somewhere along here, And sure enough, there it was. But it would be nice if the ticket said section E. It didn't. It was a barcode, But that was the last time that I ever parked anywhere besides Home Depot without making a mental note of where I was parked.
Yeah, airport parking lots are like that too.
You know what, gentlemen? I've got a client is pinging me, so I need to step out of here. Sorry for having to leave early.
That's almost done, Andy.
Yeah, we're almost getting.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. If anybody did, I don't have visibility on that. You guys have a good day.
You too. I know. So Terry, have you been doing anything with Schema lately?
I haven't been doing anything lately. Since I kind of was working and then not working with them now,
Yeah.
I got my first retirement check too. So my first pension. So, looking it over, I don't have to work. So I'm going to take my time and do something I want to do rather than doing it because I have a roof and mouth to keep full,
So you've reduced the obligations to clients down to almost nothing, if not nothing.
Yeah, it's I spend maybe 10 hours a month with clients. Got a couple, but none of it is SEO. It's all web development pretty well. One is a client I've had from day one.
Yeah.
Almost from the start of my career. Little printer repair company here. Keep them busy. You know, that and the pension is enough to pay the bills, and I don't intend on leaving a nickel. When I go,
Yeah.
the books will be balanced and nothing for anyone else. Got no one to give it to anyway, so. Now I work to live.
Yeah.
Don't have to, but you know. So trying some new things out, learning some about servers more than I had in the past, and doing that kind of work. It's interesting. Getting a chance to work with my brother, build something with him, that's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, he's my youngest brother. He's 12 years younger than I am. So, you know, working at it. And I started doing some programming on SEO Pros the other day to bring the RFP system back and do a few things there. I think there's a need for it, where people can go to one place and get unbiased information.
They can submit RFPs and receive
Yeah.
responses.
Yeah. And probably what I plan to do is kind of look over the site as well and kind of tell them, you know, what they should be looking at from a high view, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then that helps them get the company they need. Like if a company has good links, do they need to get a company that specializes in content marketing? Nah, I don't think so. They may need someone of a more technical nature if there's those sort of problems, or they may need to someone that can find a new audience for them.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that there's really enough emphasis put on that anymore. It's all about ranking for search engines, but even in like I was reading something today and someone said basically that AdWords, right, wasn't a good thing type thing for yeah. I disagree. I believe you have to use all the channels, and you can gain some really valuable information from AdWords.
I think it's worth doing the cost benefit analysis to see if it really is going to help you.
Yeah.
And if using paid search requires that you increase the price of your goods or services, it may not be the thing for you.
Right.
But it's worth looking at that and considering.
But I found in the past, right, that something that I wrote as kind of like an ad actually worked as a hook on the website as well for converting, because on an AdWords, I can put a message, right, start with a message and send them to a page and see how it translates. You can't do that with SEO really, because you're not real, because Google puts whatever title and description they want. So you don't have the same kind of ability to try multiple as well. Because if you start changing up your titles, that's probably not the best way to do SEO.
If you don't bother to include titles so that they put whatever they want, you're hurting yourself. Same with meta descriptions. If you're not choosing meta descriptions carefully for the query terms that people are going to use to find your page, they're going to grab content from your page. and
Right.
choose whatever they want.
Right.
So you get a good idea of what your page is going to be found for, and you use something appropriate as a meta description, something that is engaging, that is persuasive, that causes people to click. And
Right.
you're better off for having done that work. Because why rank highly if nobody clicks on your result?
I see what you're saying, but with using AdWords, you can do it with multiple and pick the best one, and then also use that in the SEO. Just because you have to rotate ads so much in AdWords,
Yeah.
I found that I discovered things by doing that I could also use in SEO.
When you look in Google Search Console and you sort visits to your site by page, you can look at what query terms people are finding that page for in search results. And sometimes they're a little bit surprising. They're not necessarily the phrases or terms that you expect to see.
Has it always been like that?
I'm not
Or
sure.
is that in the new version?
It's definitely in a new version. I'm not sure if it was in the older version.
Yeah, because if it was, I would have found that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's worth looking at.
I look at that, especially the click-through rates and stuff like that. I looked at those to identify low-hanging fruit, right? If you're ranking number one and your click-through rate isn't pretty high, you probably could change your description and benefit from it.
If you're ranking at number 11 or 12, see what you can do to move up a spot or two, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would only be by a change in the title or something in the page. Or doing it with links, which I think a lot of people would try and move it with a new link or two.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Got a lot of flexibility, a lot of options.
Yes. But there's some options are better than others. More sustainable. How about we use that word? More sustainable. Because you're in total control of what's on your page. Whereas at any time, I could choose to remove that link from my website and they lose the benefit.
A site that's linking to you may have their server go down, or they may go out of business and you lose value of those links. Either way.
Or just remove them.
Yeah. It does happen.
For sure. That's why, to me, the more that your ranking is dependent upon what's on the site and what you've done to build trust and authority.
The more things you have,
building links, right?
the more things you have control over. Yeah.
Right. Because you don't even those things to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Google changes those things as well, but they're not as affected as much as when someone removes a link from the site. And you're, although you don't control that, I found, like for instance, when I started and you started, title was the main thing. Like, you know, next to, well, that was before links mattered too, in how they rank. Title was how you tried to move things, right? Now that title, there's people that believe that title means nothing. as far as ranking goes and weighting. I still believe it's weighted pretty heavily, but others less so.
In most cases, I think it does have some of the most strength in terms of relevance of content that might be on a page.
Right.
Yeah.
In other words, the highest relevance placed is probably on what's in that container.
Yeah.
And if you look at HTML and how they kind of describe the functions of those things, it makes sense that that's the way it goes.
And Google has a patent. They refer to something they call semantic closeness, where they say every word on a page is equally relevant to the title of that page as each other word on the page. It's the examples they start out with are lists and headings for lists. So if you have a list about the planet Saturn that includes facts about the planet, like it rotates around the sun in so many days, its size is like 1/3 of Jupiter's. I'm not sure about that. But a list of facts about the planet, each list item is equal distance away from the title for that list. They're semantically close.
And therefore contextually closer as well.
Yeah. And the same type of thing with the title of the page and all the rest of the content.
Yeah, those are lists, and the things that we looked at back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as much belief in those as moving rank, right? I don't want to say ranking factors because that seems to mean every freaking thing in the basket, but you're getting where I'm coming from. Like, and when you think about it, right, lists are an incredible way to present information in a way that's easily segmented.
Yeah.
And I always include a couple of lists in a article. And I think that's why I do pretty good when I write articles that they rank. I think that's part of the reason why is I start, and in the first couple of paragraphs, there's going to be a list of important information in a list. I think those things still matter, and probably matter more as Google understands semantics and semantic context kind of more and more, and places more and more relevance on it.
The topic that you write about is evidenced by the things on your page, and they often reflect it. If you have content that predicts what your page is about and makes it easier to understand, the search engine is going to understand what your page is about. You write about a horse and you mention saddles and stirrups, things like that. You're talking about the animal, a horse, as opposed to the thing that you saw wood on in carpenter's studio.
Right.
Yeah. So getting the context by using words that make that association in your head is something, same association that a search engine is making.
Right. And if you look at how Google used tab data and stuff, right? That's another, same with lists. All those things work together. I think that kind of SEO writing is not as evident as it once was.
It's hard to say. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think some copywriters are still trying to do that.
Yeah, I would agree there. But more and more, even SEOs believe that that kind of stuff, right, is too contrived, that Google doesn't look at it the same way. I believe there's kind of those kind of, I don't know, just things I've read. I wonder how people come to these conclusions.
Sometimes I think they have vivid imaginations.
Oh, I suppose that's quite possible.
Sometimes people write stuff that they think is controversial just to attract attention to themselves.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's better ways to do that. Maybe by finding something that's actually worth writing about and saving it.
I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah. That's why I don't write much. I don't think I have that much to say that, you know.
That's why I do things like look at patents and try to write about those, because they're usually relevant to something involving SEO.
Right.
I learn from them.
Right. But it's also, and I think Dave's kind of like this, I don't like to write about things that actually is giving away the secret sauce. You know, a chef that knows what he's doing adds the good stuff when no one's looking. Or does things in a way that people don't pick up why theirs is better or what that little difference is. And sometimes it's a slight nuance, right? That makes a difference between, you know, here and here.
Yeah.
When the chef shows you that, that's the most respect you can get.
I've got to go.
We're past due anyhow. We bored them all enough. We've done our quota for this week, Bill.
Think so. I've got to get the door though.
Okay.
I got to stop the broadcast. Thank you all. Bye.